So, let's talk about the summer newsletter. I want to read exactly what Toby Fox said because I think his wording here is really, really important. He said, Rudy Holiday is going to die, and Chapter 6 will be his funeral. Wait, hold on. Oh. Okay, that's not quite exactly what he said. Let me try again. All right. Chapter 6 is a shorter, straightforward chapter that focuses on one aspect of the story. Because of that, many things are still not touched on here. In fact, it may surprise you what was missing. But one thing will be clarified, whether you're ready for it or not. And I keep getting hung up on one word there, clarified. Not revealed, clarified. Now, the words are close enough to where in normal conversation, yeah, you can use them pretty much interchangeably. I'm not trying to, nail Toby Fox to the board for violating, dictionary law here. But if we assume that he chose that word deliberately, then it kind of gives us a really useful filter for figuring out what Chapter 6 is actually going to be about. Because revealing a revelation, that gives you new information. Whereas clarifying something, that resolves ambiguity in the information that you already have. So if you ask me here, hey, Lex.ham, where do you want to eat? And I say, I could absolutely destroy a cheeseburger right now. Well, I've just revealed something to you. You didn't know where I wanted to eat before, and now you do. But let's say earlier I told you, I could really throw down with some meat right now. And then later you ask, okay, were you talking about chicken or beef? Well, now I can clarify. I meant chicken. Kentucky Fried Chicken, dirty, dirty fried chicken. And the important thing here, though, is that before I clarified anything, you already had an ambiguous piece of information. Meat. And you had multiple plausible interpretations of what I meant by that. So that's the standard that we're using here. Not that there's some Platonic definition of the word clarify that's carved into a stone tablet somewhere, but I feel like Toby used that word pretty deliberately. And so if we're deliberately contrasting quote-unquote clarified with this giant pile of things that Chapter 6 is not going to touch, then I want to be a little bit conservative here. We're looking for mysteries where, one, the game has already given us specific evidence. Two, that evidence supports at least two actually identifiable interpretations. And then three, those interpretations have to be mutually exclusive. In other words, these are multiple choice questions here that we've been presented with, not essays. And so once you apply that filter to all the mysteries that we have, the list gets really, really short. Because most of the giant Deltarune mysteries out there right now, they're not multiple choice questions. They're these lengthy essay questions. Who is the Roaring Knight? That's not something that can be clarified. It's a mystery. There's 20 different candidates and then some. We can pretty much keep this whole YouTube theory industrial complex churning until at least Chapter 7 and beyond. But what hasn't happened here, the game hasn't sat us down and said, okay, the knight, it's either Carol or Des. Pick one. So if Chapter 6 comes around and tells us who the knight is, that's revealing new information. It's not clarifying. And same thing with Ralse. What's Ralse? We don't know. Who is the angel? We don't know. What's the angel's heaven? What's inside the shelter? What actually happened on that day? What's going on in the lake? What's on that final prophecy panel? Those aren't ambiguous answers that we've been presented with and we have to pick between two. Those are just straight up unanswered questions. The game has given us clues and breadcrumbs, but those clues, those breadcrumbs, they aren't the same thing as two competing explanations that have already been laid out. And that's pretty typical of Deltarune and Undertale. We get enough information to make theories, but it's pretty rare that we see two clean answers put in front of us and one of them is right. But it does happen sometimes. So what actually does qualify for this increasingly narrow set of requirements that I've laid out? Well, there's a few. Love finds its way to the girl. Does love mean level of violence? Or does it just mean love? Those are two plausible, mutually exclusive interpretations of that sentence that we have been handed on a silver platter. So if Toby came out and said, yep, love means level of violence here, that is a clarification. It's clarifying the meaning of that word in that sentence. Likewise, who is the girl with hope crossed on her heart? Is it Noelle or is it Susie? The game really kind of deliberately makes it ambiguous as to which of the two that's supposed to be. We assume it's Susie, but there's enough there to where it really could be Noelle, but what's not there is a big open-ended question mark. It's gonna be one of those two, or at least that is what is being presented to us currently. There's also the question of that second voice in the Goner Maker sequence, the voice that discards the vessel. Now, this one's interesting because the identity of that second voice, that is open-ended. But what is something that could stand to be clarified is whether or not that second voice is the same as the first one. That's a clarification. And then there's Rudy. Did Rudy fall down off of a ladder, or did he fall down with a capital F and a capital D? Spoiler alert, he fell down with a capital F and a capital D. Dude is dying. Sorry, Noelle. Sorry, Des. Sorry, Carol. Sorry, Asgore. Sorry, Chris. Oh, sorry, everybody in Hometown, but Rudy's dead. Falling down has been well established in Undertale and Deltarune canon as the thing that monsters do right before they die. And this is exactly the sort of mutually exclusive but still plausible pair of interpretations that could use some clarifying. We have one phrase, Dad fell down. We have two established meanings, and they can't both be the intended explanation in the same sense. So we have this fairly small collection of possible clarifications, but we can narrow it down even further because Toby gave us more to go on than just the word clarify. He told us that Chapter 6 is short, it's straightforward, it's focused on one aspect of the story. He told us that we might be surprised by what's missing, and he also said that this clarification, it's coming whether you're ready or not. That last phrase, to me, is doing a lot of work here. Whether you're ready for it or not, that's not how you announce trivia. That's not how you announce something that is inconsequential or a side note. Ready or not implies anticipation. It implies that whatever it is that's coming is going to have some emotional weight. It's something that we've been bracing for, maybe even hoping against hope that it won't happen. So that makes the second voice a pretty weak candidate for what might be clarified here. And so if the big dramatic reveal, the big dramatic clarification of Chapter 6 is, yeah, there were two people talking. All right, cool. No, the emotional impact, if there is any, behind the second voice is going to happen when we learn who that second voice actually is. And that just takes us right back to revealing new information territory. Chapter 6 is going to focus on one aspect of the story. So whatever it is that gets clarified here isn't just something that gets clarified. It has to be the thing that Chapter 6 is actually about. learning decisively that the girl is Susie, that could be a huge moment, but it doesn't really carry a chapter. Love means love, same problem. Those are answers, yes. Those are clarifications, yes, but they don't pull the weight of the story. Rudy dying, on the other hand, now that's a story. It's a story that Deltarune has already spent multiple chapters preparing us for. He's sick, he's coughing up a lung every time you talk to him. The big dumb idiot got up on a ladder. He's getting worse. Noelle knows he's getting worse. We know he's getting worse. This hanging over her and our heads every time we visit that hospital room, it's not subtle. And then chapter 5 gives us the phrase, fell down. Yeah, that phrase has a perfectly mundane reading. Rudy fell off the ladder. Except we've been trained to hear the words fallen down as something significantly darker. In Undertale, it means you're dead. So Rudy's status is one of those rare mysteries in Deltarune that legitimately is a multiple choice thing that can be clarified. Did he fall down or did he fall down? And look, if chapter 6 clarifies the answer to that, it's not revealing a brand new problem we never knew existed. He's clarifying the meaning of information that we already have. So let's look back at the rest of the newsletter here. Chapter 6 is shorter and straightforward. A chapter that's centered around Rudy's death, that doesn't need some 15-dimensional Gaster pirate ship going on to make its way through. It doesn't need to tell us who the knight is. It doesn't need to tell us who friend is. It doesn't need to tell us what happened that day. It doesn't need to open the shelter. It doesn't need to explain the angel. It can be a very extremely direct and powerful story about one family losing someone. It's focused on one aspect of the story. That's what we were told. So, yes, Rudy is gonna die. And that puts everything into place for a coherent chapter 6. Carol, Asgore, Toriel, it kind of converges them all in one place. And it works in both the context of the weird root and not the weird root. Noelle is missing on one side of this story. On the normal side of the game, it makes sense why Noelle wouldn't be able to go to the Dark World. She's at her dad's frickin' funeral. It makes sense. But even the weird root version, if there is one, also makes sense from a storytelling perspective, because if she doesn't show up to that funeral, suddenly that funeral becomes a very different experience for everybody. But it's still coherent. You know, this gives chapter 6 a way to function in both versions of Deltarune, despite Noelle being in radically different circumstances. Rudy's death, it gives us a really natural way to structure that. Noelle doesn't need to be running around the Dark World having another adventure. She has somewhere else to be. Her dad just died. It doesn't prove anything, but it fits. And that's really the key here. None of this proves Rudy's gonna die. Toby totally could have used that word clarified in a looser sense, and I could be reading way too much into this. And chapter 6 could come out and this whole thing ages like milk. But that is the risk that you take when you build a theory around one word in a newsletter. But if I have to bet, I'm betting on Rudy. Or against Rudy, depending on how you look at it. Chapter 6 is going to be about what happens after Rudy dies. It gives you Carol, it gives you Asgore, it gives you Toriel, maybe it gives you Noelle, maybe even creates a reason for Asriel to finally return to hometown. And maybe it gives a reason for Des to finally return to hometown. There's enough there for an entire chapter without requiring the game to just cash out every single mystery at once. Now, look, I do have a much more deranged version of this theory where Rudy is the boss and the shadow crystals and the pure crystal and the twisted sword all kind of combine to make this weird keep, but look, that's a different video. Probably make that one eventually, but for now, I think this newsletter gives us a very clean chain of reasoning here. Chapter 6 focuses on one aspect of the story, A lot of the things that we expect, they're going to be missing. One ambiguity is going to be clarified. It's something that we've been emotionally preparing for. It's going to be a gut punch. And whatever it is, it has to support a chapter that works across all the game's routes. The knight doesn't really fit that. The shelter doesn't really fit that. The second voice doesn't really fit that. Rudy does. So that's my prediction. Put it on the board. Chapter 6, it's not going to reveal that Rudy Holiday is going to die. It's going to clarify that Rudy Holiday already did.
Don't cry for me. I'm already dead.
All right, well, thanks for listening or watching, everybody. This is my second video, and I'm actually kind of even more nervous than my first one because I spent a lot of time working on and editing the first one. The second one, I feel like I was able to get through it a lot faster, and I'm a little bit worried that maybe I got through it too fast. Maybe I'm cutting corners. I don't know. What I know is that the consistent piece of feedback and advice that I've been given by basically everybody is just make content. Don't overthink it. Don't try and be perfect. So that's what I'm doing here. And honestly, I kind of hate it because I am very much a perfectionist. I looked at my last video. I re-uploaded it like 4 times. I still nitpicked that last video. But I'm putting this out there. Hopefully it's not garbage. Hopefully you all like it. And hopefully I'll keep making more. So thank you and see you soon. Oh, here is my ham-handed insert where I ask you to like and subscribe and ring the bell. You know, it feels very weird saying this, but at this point I feel like even talking about how weird it is has become a trope. So look, you know I've got to say it. I know I've got to say it. So here I am. I'm saying it. Please like, please subscribe. It actually genuinely does help. It lets me know that people are actually enjoying this. So yeah, do it, please.